Just so much fun to like connect with all these extraordinary people who are passionate about something in particular and like taking that next step to make it happen. I mean, it really takes courage to do that. Not only courage, but to really discover what your specific gifts are. And for a lot of these people here, it's through storytelling and filmmaking. And it's just such, I'm always blown away. I'm blown away every year. I mean, it's been amazing just to hear everyone's stories, and they're all so unique. But everyone has that motivation of being inspired that they can really create new possibilities in our world. So I'm excited. Jon Bowermaster, he was with us last night, and he is a Wild and Scenic Film Fest regular. And man, it's been 14 years, so I'm sure you've been to probably almost all of those in one way or another, Jon.
I think last night we were figuring it goes back to at least 2007.
Yeah, so a lot. And Jon, by the way, we're going to talk about your films. He's, you've done so much work on a huge scale, like with Disney Pictures. What was the last Disney picture that you did?
Well, I worked on this movie called Oceans, which was made by the French filmmaker Jacques Perrin.
Yeah,
which was distributed in the U.S. by Disney.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
So Jon's films that he's featuring here are After the Spill and also Dear Governor Brown. You had Dear Governor Cuomo. Last year? Was it last year?
No, we showed
About
Dear
2 years
Governor
ago?
Cuomo in 2013.
About fracking.
Fracking in New York State.
Have you connected with David
Braun? David Braun is in Dear Governor Cuomo.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, he has
okay.
a speaking role.
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
I know he's here again with Faith Against Fracking.
That's right.
All right, so tell us, let's see, should we start with After the Spill and looking at like what's going on with Louisiana now? I think about that all the time actually, Jon, because it's so often in our media, right? Like we explode something like Hurricane Katrina, and then there was the BP oil spill, and then I'm thinking, well, what's going on now?
Yeah, well, and that's what the film is about. I had made a film called Sola, Louisiana Water Service, which we showed here probably in 2011, but it was about the relationship between man and water in Louisiana. And then when the BP, that movie was being finished literally as the BP mess began, so we included it briefly in that film, but I kept going back every year and filming what was transpiring along the coastline in the aftermath. And that resulted in this new film 5 years after the spill. And the irony, of course, is that Katrina was awful. The BP spill was catastrophic, but those aren't the worst things facing Louisiana's coastline. It's the fact that because of all this, for a combination of reasons, all this degradation, Louisiana's disappearing fast. And so
what are the people saying about this? Like, what were some of the personal stories you've drawn out of that?
Well, the film kind of takes you through briefly kind of for the 5 years, and obviously fishermen have been hurt,
sure.
Oystermen have been hurt, human health has been aggravated because of a lot of the invisible stuff in the air from the stuff that washed ashore during the spill, but also they burned a lot of it off, and then they put this correxin on it. They put this poison on it to reduce.
So I want to know what's going on with that now. Are they seeing the side effects from that now?
People. There's a fellow in the movie who's got oil splashed on his face, and he's now blind.
Wow.
I mean, there are lots and lots and lots of examples.
I'm so glad you did this, though, because we don't really hear much about it anymore.
No, and the irony is, of course, that here in California you have this horrific methane leak going on in a natural gas storage plant outside of Los Angeles, which everyone already says could be a worse environmental accident than the BP spill. But because nothing's on fire, because nothing blew up, because there's no oiled birds coming ashore, it's not getting the media attention it should. But what's going on at Porter Ranch and Elisa Canyon is horrific. Thousands of people have already been relocated, and thousands have been already made sick.
How do we not know about all that?
I don't know. How do you not know about it?
How do we not know? Well, I mean, it is interesting. Yeah. Well, then you look like at Flint, Michigan.
Yeah.
Right?
Also.
I mean, that at least, that's starting to get some traction on that story. I mean, things happen like that all the time. And it's, I mean, thanks to people like you who are showcasing these stories.
Well, if you judge my career based on, my filmmaking career based on the two movies I'm showing here, it's clear I just go to other states, because I live in New York.
Yeah.
And kind of talk about all the horrific stuff going on in their states.
Yeah.
But
well, you did, I mean, you'd have the one with fracking, and that was huge, actually, huge thing, celebration for New York, right? Around the
movie
fracking.
was one of the tools that helped convince the governor not to allow fracking in New York State.
So then for Dear Governor Brown, around all that, fracking and everything going on here in California, wouldn't it be exciting if your film,
would inspire him,
Yeah.
In California, you have slightly different ask, though, because to ask for a ban on fracking in California it's such a small part of the oil and gas process here in the state, that's not enough. What the ask has to be in California is just leave it in the ground. Leave fossil fuels in the ground, which Governor Jerry Brown has no problem talking about when he's talking about other places.
Sure.
He made a speech at the Vatican very famously, in which he called on the nations around the world to leave fossil fuels in the ground. Except he doesn't.
Why isn't he doing that here then?
Well, because oil and gas is the third.
It's huge.
Well, California's the third largest gas and oil producer in the country, and it's a big economy here. And he can't, even though he's not going to run for office again, he can't take them on yet. He may, as he continues to shape his environmental legacy, he's got 2 more years in office, I believe. He may very well put in some laws to kind of slow fossil fuel extraction.
Has he seen the film?
We don't know. It's only shown twice. We showed it. I produced it with my friend Mark Ruffalo, the actor, and so we showed it in Hollywood as a way to try and he really wants some help from the entertainment industry. Entertainment industry is probably the fourth or the second largest industry in California, but he feels alone out there a lot in his environmental efforts, but he can't get other actors, producers, agents, directors to join him in the kind of very public way he is.
Yeah.
So we showed it to a bunch of kind of Hollywood A-listers as a way to try and encourage them to join him. And then we showed it in Paris at COP21.
Oh, tell me about, I didn't get to ask you about that last night.
I wasn't there.
Oh, you weren't? Okay.
No.
Do you know Osprey Oriole Lake?
I do not.
Okay. She was over, she said, we'll have to connect you guys at some point.
No,
She does a lot for women.
I'd run from those big conferences.
You do.
Really,
it's just too much. Jon, by the way, goes out to like the Arctic, or Antarctica, right? I mean, I know you said you've been tied to your desk lately, but often you're out. About.
Yeah. Well, I had a 10-year run with National Geographic where they funded a project of mine called Ocean's 8, where we went around the world one continent at a time by sea kayak, and looked at environmental issues, from sea level. Yeah. And so that took me around the world. All around the world.
So back to even fracking in California, what do you think people don't know about here? Like, what do we need to know about right now that might instill the importance for people to get involved in this and to help support Jerry Brown in keeping it under, in the ground?
There's so many issues. I mean, you have organic produce in the Central Valley of California being watered with produced water that comes from the oil and gas industry because the farmers need water because of
the drought.
And the oil and gas industry has no hesitancy in presenting this to them. Now, giving it to them for free. Now, they've done this for decades. But because of the fracking process, it's all changed because now they're using chemicals in that process that they didn't use before. Now those chemicals are becoming part of that produced water, the water that comes back out of the ground. Now they're giving that away to farmers. That's awful. That's awful. And that's just terrible. One thing.
And by the way, for fracking, I mean, it's to get to the core part, right? And getting to the base for the oil, like you have to add these chemicals to get it, and it's
but there is a slight misnomer about fracking. Fracking is only one part of the process. Fracking is the actual drilling and exploding the shale to get at this oil and gas that's beneath there. But oil and gas recovery spans process that long, from starting the process of the drilling to fracking to bringing it up out of the ground, and then all the delivery mechanisms, and all of that along the way is harmful. It leaks. The pitch for this boom in natural gas was that it was the clean fossil fuel, clean energy, cleaner than coal. But in fact, now they discovered during the process that methane leaks, because natural gas is not natural. Natural gas is methane. Methane is poisonous. They discovered that during that process, so much methane leaks, and methane is a far worse contributor in the short term to climate change than even CO2. So then there's nothing green about natural gas. It's not a bridge to the future, which is what we were sold by the natural gas industry.
And the methane that's leaking down in LA County, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, it's a big natural gas repository where natural gas is shipped, and then it goes from there and is delivered to communities. So it's not a fracked well itself. It's an old well that they repurposed to bring natural gas into this facility. It's 3.5 inches around, and it's encased in a 7-inch casing. And they think the leak is 8,500 feet below the surface. That's 1.5 miles below the surface. But there is apparently some mechanism for shutoff, but it doesn't work. So they've been trying since last October to jam mud down it, and now they're drilling another well alongside it to try and intercept it, which is what they did with the mess in the BP mess in the Gulf. Remember?
Yeah.
Remember they had what they called it the junk shot, where they tried to cram tennis balls and all this other stuff.
Probably duct tape was somewhere in there too.
Yeah.
It's astonishing, really. So, well, okay. So even with what can we do here in California? Like obviously supporting Brown, but what's one thing that we can do? Like what should we do today?
Write the governor.
Okay.
Every politician in the country now pays a lot of attention to the social media.
Yeah.
Hound the governor. Call him every day. I'm sure there's a number in his office that rings to a voice message machine. Text him. Include his text, include his Twitter handle in any text, because the governor's office will pay attention to that stuff. And if there was a groundswell in California because the statistic in our movie, Dear Governor Brown, is that 5 million Californians live within 1 mile of at least one oil rig.
Yeah.
That's 5 million people. And so they're just accidents waiting to happen.
Oh, totally, totally.
Now, the other part of that, of course, is that, we are the problem.
Yeah.
We are
consumers.
Yeah, we are a rapacious species. We're slow to change. We generally only change when we have to, when we're forced to because of catastrophe or something. So we need to change our life when we have to make sacrifices. We need to, travel less, fly less, live in smaller houses, buy food that is grown, closer to home rather than from Chile and
those are all good things. And taking that personal responsibility and bringing that home. What are you working on next?
Well, in the Deer series, for 2.5 years, we've been working on a big nationwide look at extreme energy extraction called Dear President Obama, which comes out the 1st of March.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we've filmed in 20 states looking at this issue.
That's exciting. Yeah. Where can folks go to get more information about all your projects, Jon?
Oceans8films.com.
Okay.
Number 8, oceans8films.com.
What's the, in thinking about either the film around fracking, Dear Governor Brown, or after the spill, what was the wildest thing that happened for you in either filming or in the production?
The wildest thing? Well, we filmed in Louisiana, slowly over the course of 5 years.
Wow.
So I've spent, I argue easily that Louisiana is the most unique state of
You've probably built some really interesting relationships with people there.
Well, there's some great characters in the movie too. James Carville, who was Bill Clinton's old buddy.
Yeah,
who's a Louisiana
I still
native.
get spam mail from James Carville now that the presidential elections are.
That's right.
Yeah, that's exciting. Well, it's always good to see you, Jon.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
What would you tell everyone why it's so important to participate in a festival like Wild and Scenic?
Well, I mean, even I don't see all I can't possibly see all the films, but when the films I do see, I would have no other access to. I mean, I wouldn't learn about them in any other way except to come to the festival.
We have an ancient and complicated and necessary relationship with water. We're also very, very fragile.
And now we want to bring you the latest news on that giant oil rig which exploded and burned and now has sunk into the ocean off the coast of Louisiana.
No one from BP ever had time for us. Nobody ever said, "We're sorry Gordon died on our rig."
This oil will be washing up. There'll be tar balls and tar mats on wherever the beach is almost forever. We knew that in the beginning.
What I see happening here, we will defeat ourselves from within because we'll destroy our water and our air.
This was the ground zero to the oil spill. Looks like it was hit with napalm.
Every time we have a really bad weather front, it starts that exposure all over again.
And time again, the responsible party for that will fight tooth and nail to say, it's not from us.
2 years ago, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration took 31 place names off the chart because they don't exist anymore.
Coastal erosion is the biggest crisis that we have.
We continue to lose roughly a football field worth of land every 45 to 50 minutes. The oil industry's own study concluded the overwhelming cause of the land loss was industry operations.
We're under a massive assault.
We have great environmental laws, but they're just not well enforced.
The argument is, are you going to try to save jobs or are you going to try to save the environment? And I think that that's a false choice.
The opportunities of this are breathtaking. We have a chance to make something the world desperately needs. Develop a technology that affects hundreds of millions of people.
Our forefathers gave us the power to change the entire government with a little piece of paper.
You don't have to be a rich man to stand up and be counted.
We've literally got a chance to change the world. But we're in danger of losing all of this.
California is known for a healthy lifestyle, healthy environment, organic agriculture, agritourism, being on the cutting edge, and fracking and oil and gas threatens everything we hold dear. California is a water-starved state in the midst of the worst drought in recorded history. And in the middle of this drought, the oil industry is using large amounts of fresh water for fracking and drilling, and even worse, contaminating huge amounts of our protected drinking water. These are shocking practices.
We've got an industry, the oil industry, the petroleum industry, that's 150 years old. It has extracted trillions of dollars worth of resources from beneath our soils. Why can't that industry conduct its practices and procedures in a clean manner?
All of those techniques, fracking, steam stimulation, acidizing, all of those techniques use chemicals. And they are chemicals that the oil companies aren't willing to reveal all of those chemicals to the public. Why? But yet they're safe. And they won't affect your drinking water. And they won't affect your environment. Your air is going to be fine. And you stay in that environment long enough, pretty soon you have a headache. And you're wondering why you have a headache.
As a community, as a residents, it's not our job to prove that this kind of industry making our community sick.
We're really compromising and threatening the future of the livability of these places and the economy of these places for one dying, greedy industry.
We just got to take better care of this planet. That's all there is to it. Or it won't take care of us.